Hi everyone, my name is Jen Johnsson. I'm a psychologist and research affiliate at the Centre for Disability Research and Policy at the University of Sydney. I'm honoured today to be joined by my colleague Dr. Janson, who is the Research Director at Plumtree Learning. We're here to talk to you today about our Community and Me project, which is funded by the Department of Social Services under ILC funding. Our project is exploring the current experience of community inclusion and participation for children aged 0 to 14 years with a disability and their families in Australia. The first phase of the project was to get a snapshot of community inclusion to inform individuals, organisations and government through a survey. The information will also be used to support the development of an inclusion visioning tool for organisations, and Nick will talk more about that later. So we use co-design with people with lived experience of disability, caregivers and researchers to develop the research methodology. I'd like to give a shout out to all of our co-design team members, they were all on our website, who did a remarkable job in providing input and feedback throughout the process. As a researcher, co-design is always a journey of self-discovery. From where we started as a group and with the survey to where we ended up with now are continents apart. It is only through co-design with people with lived experience of the topic that we can truly find out what matters most. So just going into our talk on community inclusion, we just want to make sure that we're defining it for everyone, that it is the active participation of a child and their family in community activities of their choosing that support the development of interpersonal relationships. So just a bit of a snapshot on the participants. So to date, we have 80 responses from families from a range of children's ages and diagnosis. And as part of the co-design process, we really looked at invisible disability and ensuring that we capture information on that to really kind of highlight that there's a lot of barriers that people with invisible disability face in terms of community participation. One of the snapshots we wanted to capture in the survey was current participation over a range of community activities such as going to the park, playing sports, going to museums or galleries. In our discussion, we recognise that all children and families have a different perception of what successful inclusion means for them and for their child. Some children and families may choose integrated participation at times and included participation at others. What is most important is that children and families' current participation matches these desires and hopes, the desires and hopes for their child. Therefore, our co-design group decided to use this well-known diagram to define participation on the levels of being excluded, segregated, integrated, and included. We also wanted to highlight the existence of invisible disabilities within this model for the first time. What we found is that current participation is not matching up to families' hopes for their child. Here we see current participation across a range of different activities and how children are currently participating. And here we see families and how they responded to their hopes for their child for future participation, how they would like to see their child participating across a range of activities. Our goal year on year with this survey is to keep measuring this information to see if policy changes, organisational awareness and capability through such things like Anik's tool that she's going to talk through, and improvements on the current barriers to participation is making a difference for children and families. So speaking of barriers, what we found is that environmental sensory barriers and attitudes rated as the most extreme barriers for participation and inclusion in community activities. There are many organisations that are currently considering the impact of sensory barriers such as lighting and noise. However, attitudinal barriers are absolutely everyone's business to change and to think about in terms of how we make environments more inclusive. So here are 3 quotes from families around attitudinal barriers and enabling factors for making change. Reserve judgment. You need to get to know the child and how they behave, taking the whole situation into account before jumping to conclusions. Another family talked about focusing on what a person with a disability can do rather than looking at the child and thinking about what they can't do. And another family talked about teaching children early about difference and diversity. As part of our project, we're also running a photo voice project. So this is where we ask families to support their child to take photos of things out in the community, things at places they feel welcome, where they love participating, and then also where they might not have a good experience and they may want to participate, but they don't feel that they can't. And then getting them to answer in their own way, in their own communication, how they feel about that event. The Photo Voice, the family survey is closed, but the Photo Voice project is still open. So please, the QR code is there to have a look at the Photo Voice project, share it with families that you work with and support so that they can have their say on community inclusion. Mello is a peer worker with Plumtree. He'll be talking about his experience of Photo Voice during the conference. I'm now going to hand over to Anik to talk through the visioning tool.
Thank you, Jen. We worked on both sides of the inclusion equation, families, as you explained earlier, and organizations in the community. What are organizations and communications communicating about their views on inclusion? How do they approach inclusion challenges? What does it mean? How do we get to start conversations? We collaborate with different levels of organization to ensure that our work to organization contributes to their values and mission. Visioning in Action is a novel strength-based tool to address the community inclusion of children from 0 to 14. So next slide, please. It's an evidence-based tool rooted in positive psychology, integrating game principles for organizations to support their staff in developing a shared vision for the inclusiveness of their service. The tool supports organizations to discuss inclusion scenarios collated within a national survey and a co-design process of parents of children with disabilities, uncover the organization staff strength and harness them into a collective process of discovery and change, prioritize such actions and short-term inclusiveness improvement, and provide foundation for strength-based conversation to transform their collective vision into action. Please note the QR codes on each slide. Use it to contact us if you'd like to hear more about the vision tools for organizations. Participants start with building individual interest and capacity. Next slide, please. The strength exercise that we propose is scientifically backed up by big data. That's about more than 2 million people. People reflect on their greatest strengths and assemble a shield that is personal to them. Next slide. The list of points for participants to consider or discuss includes signage, safety, toilets, physical space, communication, website, emergency, etc. Next. When an issue applies as a group, excuse me, participants decide how to name the issue. Then, as the next slide shows, inclusion goals are placed on an organization vision board according to criteria such as importance, feasibility. So at this stage, participants start acknowledging their agency. They shift post-it notes around the board and think about which of their strengths they could activate to work on one or two of these goals. It's about building energy around individual capacity and contributing to organizational outcomes. Each easy win goals are started to be considered, giving a chance for participants to build energy around what can be started soon. For instance, change email accessibility images, something quick. Changes will only happen if individual staff drive it. We work together with managers to ensure that the organization has a say in direction and resources, and that this work is in line with organization values and mission. Finally, we follow up. Participants are asked to report on their actions and how their next steps happen. They can take a photo of their vision board and review progress at the subsequent meeting. So we do this work in discussion with managers to also address how managers follow up on goals. And we leave the organization with a set of resources, such as checklists, survey tools, etc. All this to start an inclusion conversation in the organization. That's me. Thank you. These are our emails. Please visit our website and do click on the QR code if you wanted to learn more about it. Thank you.